As the dust of the battle still hovered in the air, Miyamoto Musashi left the island of Ganryujima in a small rowing boat. He did not look back. Nothing sparkled in his eyes of victory, but a profound emptiness and sadness gnawed at his soul. Sasaki Kojirō's death, a worthy and revered opponent, had brought him a sense of guilt and disillusionment. The glory he had so desperately sought now seemed empty and meaningless. During the journey all the way back to the mainland, Musashi withdrew into his thoughts, mulling over the meaning of the duel and the path he had chosen. Musashi started to question everything he had believed in until then. The ceaseless drive for perfection in swordsmanship, the need to prove his superiority in every duel, the craving for glory that had been propelling him since his youth. It all seemed empty and meaningless before the fragility of life and the inevitability of death. He remembered the teachings of his monk uncle on the importance of compassion, humility, and the struggle for inner peace. He had disregarded these values in his obsession with the sword and victory. Now faced with Kojirō's death, these words echoed in his mind with new intensity. The passing of Kojirō signaled the end of an era in Musashi's life and the beginning of a new journey. A path in search of a greater meaning to his existence, one that would take him beyond the confines of the sword towards a broader understanding of life and death. He had not yet found that path, but he was determined to do just that. As of that moment, the sword would no longer be his only purpose in life, and the search for inner peace became his new battle. Nevertheless, despite the peaceful years under the Tokugawa shogunate, Japan was reaping the fruits of dissent that had been sown in recent times. Toyotomi Hideyori, son of the country's fallen unifier, had become a symbol of resistance to the Tokugawa, while his allies, the remnants of the Western Army, stood ready for a last, desperate stand against the shogun's forces. Although Musashi was searching for a new path, he could not ignore the call of war. While the sword was no longer his sole reason for living, it was still part of his identity, his destiny as a samurai. He had the urge to join the conflict, to test his skills in a real battle once again. Historical sources are unclear about Musashi's role at the Battle of Osaka. Some reports claim that he fought on the side of the Eastern Army, loyal to the Tokugawa shogunate. The now mature samurai may have offered his services as a strategist, advising the Eastern Army generals with his great combat experience and expertise in the art of war. He acted as a keen observer during this period, scrutinizing the tactics and movements of the troops, striving to understand the nature of war and the intricacies of victory and defeat. Regardless of Musashi's role in the Battle of Osaka, his presence in the conflict reflects the period of transition he was going through. He was pursuing a new path, a purpose that transcended the violence and glory of combat. But the sword still appealed to him. War still captivated him, and he was unable to fully detach himself from the world that had shaped him. As a warrior, strategist, or observer, the Battle of Osaka was yet another chapter in his lifelong search for truth and meaning. Following the Battle of Osaka, Japan was solidified under the Tokugawa. The era of major conflicts and the drive for glory on the battlefields was ending, giving way to a peaceful and prosperous period. Musashi, who was now pursuing a new purpose in life, found that war was no longer an alluring direction. He decided to use his vast combat experience and knowledge of the art of war to become a strategist, a military advisor working for a feudal lord. He traveled through different provinces, offering his services to daimyo who wanted to protect their lands and cement their power in the new social order. But Musashi was no ordinary samurai. His reputation as an undefeated duelist, his uncanny two-sword style, and his independent and arrogant personality intimidated some feudal lords who viewed him as a threat to their authority. Once again, Musashi found himself as an outsider, a samurai with neither master nor clan, fighting for his place in a world that no longer prized brute force alone, but also loyalty, diplomacy, and political know-how. While searching for a new master, Musashi decided to carve out a legacy that would surpass his own existence. He adopted two young samurai as his sons, giving them his name and teachings, Miyamoto Mikinosuke and Miyamoto Iori. The eldest, Mikinosuke, was a promising samurai with a great knack for the sword. He learned the two-sword style of Niten Ichi-ryu from Musashi and became an accomplished warrior. But fate had a devastating end in store for him. When he became embroiled in a political dispute that endangered Musashi's honor, Mikinosuke chose death by seppuku, the samurai suicide ritual, to honor his adopted father's name. Mikinosuke's death was a huge blow to Musashi. He grieved the loss of his son, but acknowledged the courage and loyalty that had led him to choose death. He then set out to educate Miyamoto Iori, his second adopted son, teaching him everything he had learned about swordsmanship, strategy, and the way of the samurai. The adoption of Mikinosuke and Iori unveiled a new aspect of Musashi's personality. The solitary wandering samurai now wished to build a legacy, to leave a mark on the world that exceeded his own existence. He wanted his teachings and philosophy to outlive him, influencing future generations of samurai. Musashi was still looking for a feudal lord to serve, but now, with a new outlook, he was not only seeking a powerful and prestigious position, but an opportunity to pass on his knowledge and leave a legacy in the world. He was slowly becoming not only a legendary warrior, but also a teacher and a mentor, a guide for young samurai who were trying to find their own way in the shifting world of Edo, Japan. His search for a feudal lord to serve brought him to Himeji, a castle town in Harima Prefecture, renowned for its beauty and towering white castle, a symbol of the power and prosperity of the Ikeda clan. With his reputation as an infallible strategist and duelist, Musashi expected to find an opportunity in Himeji to put his talents at the service of a new master. However, the city presented him with a new challenge, an unexpected duel that would test his skills and his combat philosophy. Miyake Gunbei, a well-known samurai and master of the Tomoe-ryu fencing style, had heard of tales of Musashi's abilities and challenged him to a public duel. A proud and traditionalist warrior, Gunbei was resentful of Musashi's reputation, whom he considered to be an arrogant outsider who disrespected samurai conventions. He wanted to establish that the classic and elegant style of the Tomoe-ryu was superior to Musashi's pragmatic and unusual two-sword style. The duel was arranged for an open field on the outskirts of Himeji Castle, a wide-open and visible location suited to a clash between two swordsmen. In true Musashi fashion, he entered the duel site with a quiet, sneering demeanor. He was dressed in basic traveling clothes and only carried two wooden bulkhead swords instead of his famous steel blades. In contrast, Gunbei arrived in grand form, wearing full armor and wielding his ceremonial katana, a sharp and deadly blade. The different looks of the warriors reflected their fighting philosophies. Gunbei valued tradition, honor, and image, while Musashi sought efficiency, simplicity, and the essence of combat. Musashi viewed the sword as just a tool, a means of achieving victory. For Gunbei, the sword was a symbol, an extension of one's own soul. The duel opened with Gunbei taking the initiative, striking Musashi with several powerful and precise blows. But Musashi masterfully fended them off, using his two bokken to block Gunbei's thrusts and counterattacking at unexpected angles. The velocity and fluidity of Musashi's movements, together with the unpredictability of his two-sword style, puzzled and frustrated Gunbei, who found himself under increasing pressure. In a fit of desperation, Gunbei tried a descending slash targeting Musashi's head, but he had already anticipated the move. He sidestepped and, with a quick, accurate movement, struck Gunbei's right arm with his bokken, knocking his sword away. Unarmed and humiliated, Gunbei conceded defeat. He knelt before Musashi, bowing his head in respect. With a compassionate look, Musashi helped him to his feet. The Lord of Himeji, struck by Musashi's actions and reputation, but still concerned about his independent nature, invited him to an unusual role, taking part in the city's urban and landscape planning. Astounded by the offer, Musashi embraced the challenge. He viewed the opportunity as a way of applying his strategic knowledge and worldview to benefit society by developing a harmonious and safe environment for its citizens. Musashi threw himself into the task with the same effort and discipline that he devoted to his sword training. He learned the principles of town planning and Japanese architecture, observed its topography, assessed the flow and needs of the population. He used his military expertise to devise an urban plan that prioritized the city's defense, the efficient movement of people and goods, and the establishment of pleasant and functional public spaces. Musashi was also invited in designing the gardens of Himeji Castle, creating landscapes that blended natural beauty, peacefulness, and strategic defense elements. He drew on his artistic flair and understanding of nature to craft gardens that invited contemplation and meditation, while also offering observation points and escape routes should an attack occur. Musashi once again displayed his talents for adapting, learning and transforming, finding a new purpose in life, and passing on a legacy that transcended the limits of combat and war.